So I've started to build an addition to our wood shop. When it's done, it's going to look something like this. So this is what it will look like, but it won't be white. It will be black and cedar like the wood shop. But we began this program already in progress. I'm going to catch you up on the build so far. I was picking up the wood and in particular these plastic bases, but then saw a nice sized copperhead who was not very happy with me. So we decided to leave each other alone. So we could call it an addition, but it's mostly really a standalone building because it's separate from the wood shop. Or we could call it a craft and photography building because those will be the major functions. Or we could call it a she shed because it'll be mostly for my wife to work on things that she likes to make. Or we could call it a place to put scaffolding so that I can take all the stuff that's strewn about our lot and store it somewhere neatly. Or we could call it my continued obsession with designing and building beautiful little buildings. Or we could call it a prototype for the spec house we intend to build on the lot next door. Or we could call it an attempt to make architecture out of 2x4s. But it doesn't really matter what we call it, so let's just call it a wood shop addition. So let's start with the concrete pier or footing. I'm never quite sure what to call these things. Smart people always know the right name. That's what makes them smart. I guess we have Aristotle to thank for that. He loved to name things. But I've never cared about being smart. See, I think like an artist, so my words are imprecise. Anyway, the first concrete thing you might notice is 12 inches in diameter, which looked great in my computer. I thought, oh yeah, that's wonderful. You might also notice that the others are 8 inches in diameter, which was not the way I originally designed it. So first I pre-made all the forms and had a process for laying them out on the ground, and I was just so happy with my ingenuity. But then I started to pour the first one. I went and got 24 bags of concrete, and this first pier took almost all 24. So that would mean I would have to do that again for all 12 piers. 24 bags of concrete, unload them, mix them, pour them. That seemed excessive and maybe time to reconsider my design. So I built this grid of wood so I could place the piers where they need to be, and I could actually attach the metal ties to the wood. And I used 8-inch diameter cardboard tubes, and I extended them down as low as I could so the concrete goes at the bottom, and then there's basically a pier. And an 8-inch diameter tube is actually less than half the area of a 12-inch. Plus I reduced all the other sort of unnecessary concrete and significantly reduced the concrete needed. It's amazing how creative you can be when you're tired of pouring concrete. Once all the piers were in place, I framed the foundation with 4x4s and 2x8s. Now you might be thinking I could have used fewer metal ties which is true. There's probably ways that I wouldn't have to have all these, and there's probably ways I don't have to have all these different screws. But to me, this is the finished condition, and I think these things are beautiful, just the treated wood and the metal ties. The perimeter is correct. It is 12 feet by 10 feet. These corners are 90 degrees. It's perfectly square and level, and these piers are more or less true, I guess is the right way to say it. That's not an easy task, at least it's not for me. This squareness is so human. Have you ever noticed in satellite views, you can tell human development because it tends to be square and orthogonal, and natural seems to be not square and orthogonal. So these diagonals fix the frame in place, give it lateral stability. If you're thinking, I spent a lot of time on the computer designing exactly where these go, and that there is probably more of these than is absolutely necessary, you're right. These are part of the design, in my opinion. So on this platform, I sort of had a problem that I had to solve, and that resulted in this pattern. And I'll explain that a little bit further. So I have 12 piers in the foundation. This dimension is 12 feet to the surface on each side, and this dimension is 10 feet. That's the maximum area I can build without a building permit. And this is 6 feet, and all of these are 4 feet to the center line. This is 6 feet so that I can store my large scaffolding pieces, and this of course is in plan. I want to make a platform to hold the scaffolding pieces and the ladders and various other poles and things. I want to put a 2x4 on this post, and I don't want it to be very deep because I want to be able to store under it as well, and that's why I want to use a 2x4. So I attach it to all these posts. But then I'm concerned that 6 feet is a long way for a 2x4 to span, and that it will sag with the scaffolding weight on it. So I'd like to double up those 2x4s, put one on each side, and then I would like to just use treated 2x4s on top of this flat to make a surface to store scaffolding. But you'll notice if I start at this point, this dimension is a few inches more than 8 feet. So this does not extend all the way to there, which is a problem. I could just buy longer 2x4s, but I don't want to buy 10-foot 2x4s to get a few inches. And this is the kind of problem that I really enjoy. So the simple and to some extent obvious solution is to stagger these boards. So this board engages this one, and this one engages the other end, and everybody is happy. And it created this kind of cool pattern, which is one of my favorite things when design is founded in absolute necessity, structural necessity or other, yet the solution of that pragmatic concern, structural concern, is something beautiful. To me, that's kind of the best design. I started framing the deck that goes between the woodshop and the addition so that I could open these doors and not fall out of the woodshop. I doubled some of these beams so that I could have this pattern. This pattern will actually run into the addition. In my computer, this addition and this wood shop are perfectly and infinitesimally parallel. But in reality, this dimension is 1 inch longer than that dimension. So in the grand scheme of things, I've got this perfectly level square so that I can build on this, and there's a 1 inch difference between these two things. I'm going to call that good. As I study craftsmanship, it's not so much about perfection, it's about screwing up in the right place. And this is the right place. So these deck boards easily compensate for that inch. You probably wouldn't have even known that there's a difference if I didn't tell you. And ultimately there will be plywood up here, and the last piece of plywood will probably have to be tapered. And again, it's a 1 inch difference from here to there that no one will ever notice. So everything on this side can be completely square and true, and the compensation happens here. Well, that's it for now. In the next video, I'll probably get deeper into the design, and we'll keep building until we get this thing done.